Oh, shoot. Kind of abrupt. Just a little bit abrupt. Whoop. A little bit abrupt. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, wherever you are, whenever thou art. Feeling so good. From the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. World peace through individual strength. It is November 8th, 2022. A Tuesday. Here on Pow Go On. Here on Pow Go On, where we are always discussing the relationship between ourselves and other concepts. Specifically on True Love Tuesdays, we discuss the relationship between the two sexes. How are you feeling today? Wherever you are, whenever thou art, whether you are driving in a car, whether you are swimming underwater, whether you are skydiving, I hope you're doing well out there. I hope you have been able to feel the front of your shins, listen to the front of your shins. Remember that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Just a flickering candle. Just flickering there. Just a flickering candle. You're not thinking about inhaling. You're not thinking about exhaling necessarily. Just that there's a flickering candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out, as we are trying to hold our controller properly today in this simulation that we live in, that we find ourselves in, that we die every 5 minutes. But that timer is reset with every breath that we take. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Are we allowing these words to go in one ear and out the other? Holding on to the meaning always, not necessarily to every single specific words being used. In this simulation of ours, which we live in, that we die every 5 minutes, by the time it's reset with the breath we take, we invite you to hold your controller properly with us today. How do we hold our controller, our body controller properly today? By pretending that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Welcome back to another episode of Pow Go On. My name is Herbie. I'm your host. And today on True Love Tuesday, we will be talking about inside and outside world. And you might be saying, Herbie, those aren't the sexes. And I'd be like, yes, they are. As we are all part of this universe. We all are represented through and through the nature of the universe, and the nature of the universe has the inside world and the outside world. What do you mean by inside world and outside world, Herbie? Possibly the world that you live in, inside your body, inside your consciousness, that would be your inside world. The unseen world, yet one that is ever, ever, ever so real, as you take in the entire world and incorporate into your mentality, your physicality, your kinesthesia, your sixth sense, and create a world that you are aware of inside your brain, inside of your body, your consciousness. As we also have a map of our body, which allows us to move in coordination with our own body against itself and away from itself, like moving our right hand away from our body. How did we learn to do that? We created this inside map of our body of where everything is and contract the proper muscles to extend that arm forward. It takes years and years. But as you know, we are always just living in this vessel of ours, this body, and we have no choice but to live in this body, as well as our consciousness, our emotional state, and our intelligence, and our wisdom, and all of our intuition. All of our inside world exists within this body. We perceive this inside world in which we live in which we create the reality that we know to be true, and hopefully it aligns closer to the truth so we can have success in what we attempt in life. Yet this inside world exists in this very outside world represented manifestation, which is our body, which can be confirmed being the outside world as we can physically touch it, physically move in it, and acknowledge it. As soon as someone's in the room, we can acknowledge that person's there. Why? Because that body is there, though their mentality, their inside world may be wandering. But even if their mind is wandering, that inside world exists based in this physical body, fleshy body, which is part of the outside world once again. The inside world similar to your consciousness, while the outside world more similar to the the ground that supports your feet as you walk across. The outside world, like the walls preventing you from physically moving your body outside of that room. The outside world, like this phone or computer or this Walkman that you're listening to us through. Outside world, like that physical stuff. The inside and outside world, how might this be related to the two sexes? Maybe exactly so, like yin and yang, two objects in reality being the least amount of things you need to compare two objects. To even know that one object exists, you need another object that is not that thing to prove that that thing exists distinct from other things. Like yin and yang, black and white, male and female, inside world, outside world. One creates the other. The existence of an inside world confirms that there is, as such, another world that is not the inside world. How else would you know that there was an inside world at all if there was no outside world to compare it to? How would you know that there was no female if there was no male to compare it to? And how would you know that something was a male with no female to compare it to? And isn't that our building blocks? As we might notice that the feminine spirit is mostly concerned with the inside world. The ship that is flying through space of this reality that we live in, your body, your vessel. The vessel that contains your consciousness, your emotional state, your metaphysical being, your soul, your thoughts, your emotions, your wills, your desires. The container and the vessel of all of that inside world that exists, is what the feminine spirit is concerned with, the inside world. It is in their nature to be concerned with the inside world, to specialize in the inside world, whereas the masculine spirit is specialized to focus on the outside world. Is naturally predisposed to concern itself with the outside world, the physical reality, and not the metaphysical that drives it. You are an observer, but you would be nothing without the world that is to be observed. You are the inside world, but would be nothing without the outside world to contain you. We'll be right back after this short break to talk about the inside world and the outside world and how it relates to the two sexes. Femininity and masculinity. We'll be right back after this short break, but only if you're remembering to feel the front of your shins and listen to the front of the shins. Right back. Drained? Depressed? Has the chaos of the world got you feeling confused and apathetic? Even gassy? Feeling like nothing gets you out of this funk? When you're feeling lost in the daily grind, left feeling meaningless, don't touch grass, touch the front of your shins. Feel less tired and more inspired with us on the Best Feeling Podcast. Padawan. Feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world as we achieve inner and outer world peace. How? Through individual strength, of course. I hope you had a fantastic break as we are stretching our self-awareness like a muscle every weekday with Pal Go On. I'm your host, Herbie. Today is November 8th, 2022. I hope you had a fantastic break. It is a True Love Tuesday, which, as you know, on Pal Go On, a True Love Tuesday means we are discussing the relationship between the two sexes. Every day on Pal Go On, we discuss our relationship between ourselves and other concepts and things. But on True Love Tuesday specifically, we discuss the relationship between the two sexes. Using some good old body magic tricks to guide us through possibly a rough topic of discussion to feel so good from the inside out on the entire way. Some body magic tricks. Whether you are outside in the rain, you should remember to cover up, layer up. Or if you're out frolicking in the sun, if you're in the grass, touch the grass. Or touch the front of your shins. Both, really. Shout out to all of our viewers in LA or Southern California. What's good? I hope you are having a fantastic November so far. As we stretch our self-awareness like a muscle today, we invite you to hold your controller properly today and tomorrow and forever on. Here on Pal Go On when you are looking to feel a bit more energized and beyond. And how do we hold that controller properly? By pretending with us that there's a candle. We invite you to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. It's just flickering there and you're not trying to put it. You're not trying to think about exhaling or inhaling necessarily. Just that there's a lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. How might that feel for you? As we are doing some body magic tricks and holding our controller properly in this reality in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. Are we remembering to integrate what we learned yesterday and listen to the front of our shins like they are the speakers of the world? As we are remembering always the candle in front of every human being's lips, how does it feel to draw your attention, your awareness to the front of your shins? Listening to the front of the shins like they were the speakers that were projecting the sounds all around you. We might think it's strange to change the shape of and partition our awareness like this, or change our awareness, but in fact we do it all the time. When listening to music, you listen to the entire groove of all of the instruments together, but you can also pick apart and choose to pay attention specifically to a specific instrument, to a specific sound, maybe even a specific timing, a rhythm. No matter where you are, whether you are working on homework, whether you're about to make music, whether you're about to do a dance, whether you're about to see your parents, and you're about to visit your children. Wherever you are, don't we already change the shape of and isolate our awareness by keeping track of the flow of the entire traffic that we're sitting through or driving through, and yet being able to identify when one specific car is behaving erratically or is about to switch lanes? Are we able to shift our shape and size of our attention and our awareness any way we want? Are we able to soft focus and pay attention to the entire scene just as much as we're able to isolate our attention and specifically pick out certain objects in the distance as we look? Same thing with our ears, right? Can't we decide to listen to a specific area of the room or a specific sound? And so what then? How does your body feel? The day and Pal Go On. When we share some of that sweet, sweet hearing awareness towards the front of your shins as if they were the speakers of your world, do we find that our body curls around the front of our spine, as the picture displayed behind me? Do we find that our weight is having an easier time being delivered to the front, the weight-bearing portion of the spine, which is the front? not the back spiny portion of the spine, which is meant to house the nerves, but not meant to house the weight of the body, do we find ourselves having an easier time noticing our own body's weight delivered across itself into the proper channels so that the bones can carry the weight of the body and so that your muscles don't have to? And so that we can truly feel weightless. Say it with me again. Weightless. Say it with me again. Weightless. Weightless. Maybe we can feel weightless. If we decide to spread some of that sweet, sweet hearing awareness to the front of the shins, like they were the speakers of the body or the speakers of the world around you, how might we find our own weight being delivered? Do we find ourselves feeling more weightless? Do we find our body giving itself more permission to allow its weight to be distributed across like so? Like the picture behind me. Front of the weight of the body down the front of the spine, the weight-bearing portion of the spine, and then splitting into the sit bones. And remember, you do not sit on your legs, you candle breathers. How does that feel for you? Today on True Love Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, it is a True Love Tuesday here on Pow Go On. We will be discussing the inside and outside worlds. And how those might be affected, or how might those be concerned with through the lens of a man, the masculine, versus through the lens of a woman, the feminine. Two separate classifications, yet the same race, right? You literally need one to beget the other. It's not so much that we occupy different bodies and beings, but rather that we occupy the same space, but must still make room for one another. Like a yin-yang. They exist in the same... If you spread your awareness to look at the entire yin-yang, as we do with our awareness, you can notice that they are the same shape, they're part of the same, they make the same circle shape. They're both part of the same overall object, and yet you can specifically divide your attention and pay attention to one of those colors at a time and say, look, they do not occupy the same space, because they're black and the white specifically are not where the white is not where the black is, and the black is not where the white is. Necessarily, right? But yet they still form the same object, the same yin-yang. And so men and women occupying the same race, but necessarily fulfilling different roles. Just the same way that the front of your back, or the front of your spine rather, the weight-bearing portion of the spine, cannot share the same space nor the same responsibility as the back spiny portion of the spine, which is meant to house the nerves. The front portion of the spine is meant to bear the weight of the body, and so there cannot be any nerves there, otherwise any kind of bending to accommodate for, or any kind of shifts to accommodate for the weight-bearing portion of your spine might possibly damage some of the nerve endings going through there. The front of the spine and the back of the spine. The front of the spine, weight-bearing portion, back of the spine being the nerve housing portion. Both completely necessary for the overall performance and the overall job of the spine, and yet distinct parts of the spine itself, male and female. Like the front of the spine and the back of the spine, literally both men and females need to exist. They literally would not exist without one another, not just because of sex, not just because they need each other to create another version of itself, but because without one, you would not be able to define the other. The front of the spine would mean nothing if the back of the spine was identical to the front of the spine. They'd both be the quote-unquote front of the spine. They'd both be identical. They'd be the same thing. You wouldn't be able to distinguish, nor would you be able to have any of these interesting mechanisms that can now, or these interesting behaviors that can now be allowed, because the spine is twofold. The front of the spine and the back of the spine being one spine, yet distinct, different, and unique and special roles. You can't have the front of the spine taking the job of the back of the spine, trying to house the nerves. It's not even shaped to do that. It would crush the nerves. You can't have the back of the spine being responsible for the front of the spine, it would shatter because it's not meant to bear the weight of the body, but is rather meant to house and shape the curve of the spine so that the nerves themselves are safe. You cannot have the back of the spine doing the front of the spine work. Then the front of the spine, which would have been the back of the spine, doesn't have any holes for the nerve endings. Your nerves are just sitting outside of the spine. Weird and dangerous. Ineffective, no wonder that version died out. Natural selection and such. Now, is it the case that men and women must be concerned only with the inside world or the outside world? Is it the case that if a man concerns themselves with the inside world at all, that they are no longer being manly? Is it the case that if a woman decides to concern themselves more with the outside world, that they become unwomanly? Not necessarily. As we see that the way that we interact with the world is much more palpable. It's much more substantial than any concern with any particular part of the world. For example, as we do live in this concurrent dual world where we are an inside world but experiencing an outside world, and like a yin and yang, they necessarily create each other. Without something to observe the observed world, how do we know this observed world exists? And without an observed world, what would the observer have to observe? How could they be an observer if there was no observed world? If there was no consciousness in the human experience to share their experience of the world, how could we know that a world even exists if there was nothing to process this outside world? So we have this inside world. We have this, our bodies are this ship just flying through space, right? Flying through reality. And we have this inside world, so it's everything that causes the ship to run, everything that explains the ship's mechanisms and how it roams through the galaxy. And then you have this outside world that is the galaxy in which the ship is flying through. But without an inside world, this ship would simply be a rock, a dead rock just floating through space with no agency, no consciousness, no choice of life, no life. And vice versa, if there was no outside world, this inside world of a ship would not be floating through anything at all. And so if we are ships, if we are these awesome spaceships going through reality as we are experiencing reality, if we are these awesome ships, well, the inside world is more like the inside of that ship. The mechanisms, the engine, the buttons, the functionality of the inside, which causes the ship to be a ship, which allows the ship to orient itself, and we can make choices to navigate the galaxy, this outside world, because of the options allowed to us by this inside world. So we are these awesome ships that are flying through space. Both men and women are. And while the inside world, the feminine spirit, is more concerning itself with the insides of these ships, whereas the masculine spirit is more concerned by nature. It's more natural. It's in their nature to keep their faces towards the outside world, where we are going, navigating the ship, what the entire world is made up of, and what the entire galaxy is made up of, and how to navigate it, and why to navigate it, where to navigate it, all concerning this relationship between this ship and the outside world that it exists in. The masculine spirit being more naturally concerned with the outside world that us as ships are exploring, and the feminine spirit being more concerned with the inside world how the ships themselves are doing and how the ships themselves are faring with relationship to themselves. Is there enough gas? Are the wires connected properly? And what is the state? What is the state of each ship? The inside world, the nurturing world. The inside world, the self-nurturing, the self-observant, whereas there's the outside world, is outward-facing. How is your outside, or how is your inside world feeling? As we are pretending there's a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out, always. It's just a flickering candle, just lit in front of your lips. You're not trying to put it out. You're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling necessarily. There's just a lit candle in front of your lips. And how does that feel for you today? Does it feel natural to see that? Does it feel natural to think that women are more concerned with the inside world? Where did we get that? Well, I don't know. Possibly the fact that an entire human is created inside of this other human. Why would this machine, if we are all machines and ships, why would this specific machine not be more concerned with its inside world when it's literally has phases of its life when it's fulfilling a certain purpose in which it should be completely concerned with what's going on in the inside world, in the inside body, as it is nurturing in the most physical and most real and most true way. It is truly fulfilling its purpose to nurture. What does nurture mean? To care about the inside world. As in how this, what you're caring for, what you're nurturing, what you end up performing the act of nurturing is paying attention and improving one's relationship with itself, improving the health of one's relationship to itself. As we are machines and ships that operate on the outside world, but machines and ships that have a state of in and of itself, a human condition, a state in which the machine actually is. Are we taking care of our inside world? Are we remembering to nurture our inside world by integrating as many truths as possible, not identifying with them necessarily, like trying to seek validation by identifying with parts about ourselves, like, oh, I'm generous, or I'm not stingy, or I'm highly loving. What do we know? What do we know? Don't we make mistakes all the time? We are ourselves, and we are our emotional, physical, and spiritual states that we are, without putting any judgment on it. And have we nurtured ourselves, our inside world, by integrating more truths? How are we feeling to integrate more truths of ourselves, like remembering that the weight-bearing portion of the spine is our front, remembering that the thoughts that we hear in our heads, especially, well, remembering that all the thoughts that we hear in our heads are also a result of how our body is feeling. And how balanced is your body feeling? How free is your body feeling? And how far does that feel from your mental state? As we recall, our mental state is not so different than our physical state, as if our physical state is having a hard time finding its truths. It's having a hard time letting itself relax. It has a hard time letting itself just be where it wants to be if it cannot feel where the weight of the body is supposed to be. And so if you'll join me today in holding our controller properly, I want to invite you to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. It's just flickering there. You're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling, whatever you're doing, whether you have us in the background studying, or whether you are listening in close, or whether you're eating, or whether you're drinking, or whether you were just chilling. We hope you'll remember to listen to the front of your shins like they are the speakers projecting the world sounds around you. as we observe our sense of self and stretch our self-awareness like a muscle. Always. Just focusing on our body and letting our body reflect by how it reacts to the world. We simply observe our body like it is the canvas that the world and all of its expressions splatter onto. And how do we see this image of ourselves clear, this image of how we're reacting to the world clearer? By literally observing our own body, so we can become very well accustomed to it when it's at peace, or very well accustomed to it when it is aggravated, or when it's feeling joy, so we can know clearly how we are being affected and how to move from there. As we remember to listen to the front of our shins, like they are the speakers of the world today. And does this bring your body closer or more away from the balance that it so craves, as we place our weight of the body down the front of our spine and then into these sit bones? And remember, we do not sit on our legs as we listen to the front of our shins. We'll be right back after this short break. Talk about how beautiful it is that the inside and the outside world exist, and they're both like assigned to each of the sexes, basically. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it. We'll be right back after this short break. My name is Herbie. This is Pagwan.
Tried all the vitamins and gummies that claim they're going to be boosting your mental capabilities, your physical performance, your behaviors in life? Tried them and then felt motivated yet slightly confused and cautious? I mean, are the effects even real, or are they a placebo? Are you achieving what you think you are achieving, or is it imagination? Do you have all this energy now, or is that imagination too? Be done with placebos. Be done with uncertainty. Isn't it so draining to be uncertain? You can't even begin to gain confidence in what you're doing. How about some actionable, specific advice instead? Take this gummy, feel the front of your shins. Bam! That one's free. Take Padawan with you wherever you go, whenever you go, and feel so good from the inside out.
Welcome back. Feeling so good from the inside out, better than your morning would feel without. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. Why? To achieve inner and outer world peace through individual strength. How else? How are you doing? I hope your break went well. I hope you're being able to feel the weight of the body being delivered down the front of your spine. Remembering that the weight of the body delivered down the front of your spine. I hope you're remembering to feel the front of your shins. Allow the weight of your body to be delivered down the front of your shins and not the back. And for this week, and maybe forever on outwards, if this is the one that sticks with you, we're listening to the front of our shins like they're the speakers of the world and project the sounds of the world around us. Hope you're doing well. In this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with every breath we take, we invite you to pretend that there is a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Just a flickering candle in front of your lips, and you're trying to not put it out. You're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling necessarily. You're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling necessarily. Just knowing that the body has its mechanisms to breathe on its own. You don't have to breathing. Just put your awareness on this candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Just like a birthday candle. And it's just flickering there. You're not thinking about inhaling or exhaling. And how does that feel for you? How does that feel for you as we are holding our controller properly today? Hope you're feeling well wherever you are, whether you're outside boating, whether you are inside working on some projects, or whether you are just doing some daily work. We hope that you are letting us join you as you like mop the floor, sweep the ground. That's awesome. I appreciate that. That's awesome. I'm glad to be right there with you. We are right here next to you. Go sweep that. Don't miss any sports. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whether you are joining us live at the premiere here in the afternoon on November 8th, 2022, Election Day, or whether you are watching us in a VOD somewhere. You are a beautiful time traveler. You somewhere watching us on YouTube or wherever you are, whenever you art. I hope that you have been remembering Pal Go On here in your heart. I hope it won't be very soon, but I know that we will always have to shopping cart. I hope you're doing well out there. Welcome back to a Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, a True Love Tuesday here on your Best Feeling podcast with Herbie and Pal Go On. All right, so today, as we rub our hands in this great shirt that I have that make me dance, as we rub our hands, today we'll be talking about inside and outside world. Keep getting scam likely calls. Who knows scam likely? Raise your hand. We go way back. Today we'll be discussing inside and outside world. Well, we discussed earlier about why men are concerned with the outside world and why women are naturally concerned with the inside world. Why men are naturally concerned with the world and the physical world that we live in. A relationship from us to it outwards. Women are more naturally concerned with the relationship from the outside world to the inside world. Men are mostly concerned with the world that the bodies travel through, and then women are more naturally concerned with the body that the world affects. I mean, that includes emotions, that includes spirit, that includes inside ideas. And there's always cross-pollination of the ideas anyway, because, I mean, we're already living in the yin and yang pattern of this inside and outside world as it's reflected in our existence. We have an outside world body, we have a physical body, and this physical body is what created this inside world. Your brain, your heart, your lungs, your body that contains your soul and spirit and yourself. The vessel that contains all of that inside world of you is an outside world object, is a body. And just like how pain in your left arm is going to make it hard for you to think about other topics if the pain is excruciating, the outside world and the inside world are constantly interacting. So it's less like they're two distinct objects and more like two sides of the same coin. More like the front of the spine and the back of the spine. They both exist necessarily. They create each other just by virtue of the fact that no two things can take up the same space in space. No two things can occupy the same exact space. And so just by nature of that reality of the world, male and female have been created. It's just one race, but the male and female are like the lowest common denominator. It's like the least amount of divisions you need to make one race. Is this two? And coincidentally enough, or incidentally, as in maybe like it caused this, but the inside world and the outside world, the two halves of ourselves are represented in our body itself. We are one race with each individual encapsulating affinity and experience with the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And yet the inside world, although affected, our consciousness and our emotional state and our personality and ourselves on the inside world are affected by this both halves. Even though your inside world is affected by both the masculine and the feminine energies of the entire existence of knowing, of just the universe, of just everything you know, everything you can experience, everything you can dissect and begin to understand. Although we are each individually encapsulating the ability to see and value both perspectives of how to look at the world from the outside world point of view or the inside world point of view. Although our inside worlds are malleable in that way, or our inside worlds are all-encompassing in that way, the outside world that created that ability for us to even have that consciousness is locked into the outside world in a way very different than the outside world. As in, your physical body is what it is. And we might try to say, especially in current conversation, we might want to say, oh, well, we might want to say that our bodies and minds are totally separate, that your inside experience is completely independent from your outside world form. But we know that's not true. Just as we know as our physical, or as our emotional state, our mental state is completely affected by our body's ability to feel relaxed or feel calm. If it's not some kind of balance pain or posture pain of the spine, which most people have, like 99% of people have, hands down, it's just pain that's like so deep in there, and then you just learn to live with it. We can see that pain itself, even in the arm or the hand, or something like that, is going to affect your mentality. And so deep pain that's very close to the bone, that's very close into the body, more structural, more having to do with the self. So we tend to take that pain and blame ourselves for that pain because it's literally coming from our own body's organization with itself, which can be remedied. But we notice that the pain that comes physically is not separate from our choices that we make emotionally, mentally, spiritually. As we are feeling emotional, physical, and spiritual pain, right? We are able to feel pain in different scopes of our experience, not just physical pain, but then there's an emotional pain from like heartbreak or from missing a loved one. And then there's a spiritual pain often associated with existential problems like, what am I doing here? Is what I'm doing morally or ethically correct? Am I making the most use of my time? Do I feel lazy because of that? Do I feel unempowered because of that? We have all these different kinds of pains. We have physical pains all the way to spiritual pains, right? And don't those different pains affect our personality, really? Like our ability to make choices and react to the world, and what choices and which choices of actions feel free for us to move towards, to remain authentic or to remain receiving what we believe we want in life. So our personality, our inside world, as we know, is, despite what the modern media will tell us and say that your inside world can be completely independent of your outside body, like your inside experience of like your identity with yourself is like completely 100% independent from your physical self. Like your spirit is literally just like this like piece of soul, like this like liquidy thing that just got placed into like this vessel, this body that has nothing to do with the choices that soul makes. It's just not true. Even sitting improperly is going to have you so uncomfortable that how much are you going to be able to think about and be present for the current moment, speaking to someone that you actually have respect for? How much of your authentic self will you be if you're sitting in such a way that you're just always uncomfortable from the inside? Isn't your personality, isn't your consciousness now, your awareness, isn't it being split as you're trying to focus on this outside world occurrence, have this conversation, but it's also split between that and trying to feel and trying to balance and mellow out this pain that's going on deep within you. If it's not structurally like a bone, then the one that's going deep, deep, deep within you, as in like your spiritual problems of like your choices in life, or maybe your emotional problems. We often find ourselves distracted from the current moment because of pain. Physical pain, not as frequent, but emotional pain constantly throughout our days. We have a depression epidemic in the world right now. Spiritual pain of, am I going to be alone one day? Or is this moment going to last? Did I say the correct thing? We have all this pain and uncertainty that's going on in our inside world that up until now has always been disguised as just being separate from the outside world, but we know that's not true. We know that's not true. But what we do know is true is that it is beautiful for the men to be concerned with this outside world that we're living in, and the women to be concerned with the body itself, with the body that is living. The outside world, the masculine energy being concerned with the relationship towards what to be living in. The outside world, the masculine energy being concerned with the relationship between the self and the outside world. And the feminine energy being more concerned with the effect of the outside world on the self. We need both directions, the direction going from the observer to the observed world, and being able to also dissect the relationship with how the outside world affects the inside world. The nurturing of the inside world, the feminine energy. Does that mean that women can never be concerned with the outside world? No, they are all the time. It's simply that the nature of concern is one where the relationship is more about nurturing the self. How things relate to whether or not they nurture the self, the thing that is observing the world. Men are going to be concerned with observing the world, while the women are going to be concerned mostly with the thing that is observing the world, and how to nurture that so that it can continue to observe the world. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Men don't know how to do that. Men will lock themselves in for days, weeks at a time and never take care of themselves. Just focus on a game, focus on something of the outside world that is not happening within their inside world. They just get lost and their body degrades. Well, what happens when the body degrades? It can no longer perform the great things that humans do. So although humans will spend all their time until their dying breath to achieve some kind of legacy, how strong can this legacy be if the builder itself is never taken care of? It's never examined. Is there any wonder why women tend to be the highest, most populated? Why is there any wonder why most the job with one of the highest women workers is the psychology department? The learning of the self, what makes the self tick. They believe that the soul, the personality is independent from the body, but we know better than that. We know better than that. We know they're integrated. We know you can only be as free to be your authentic self as you are to the truth of your own body and your own body's ability to let go of the muscles trying to support you and allow your spine, allow the front weight-bearing portion of the spine, which is the front, allow your bony structures to take that weight away from the muscles so that your muscles can be free to express who you are authentically. As we get closer to our truths, we integrate and are able to be free to be more of our authentic selves. And what more is closer to the truth than the fact that we have this inside and outside world that created us as human beings that are structurally different, yet conceptually the same, ideologically the same. We are physically different. We want to be more of our authentic selves. We got to integrate closer to the truths of our bodies. Men and women got these different physical structures that we integrate towards. As we know, your inside world is also defined by how well your outside world is integrated with itself. And so we must integrate the truths of us having two different roles. Physically represented in our physical bodies, we have different duties to how we should observe the world. Just the same way that how the weight-bearing portion of the spine, that is the front, has a different duty, and the weight-bearing portion of the spine, the same way that the weight-bearing portion of the spine, which is the front, has a different and unique duty from the different and unique and beautiful duty of the rear portion of the spine, which is meant to house the nerves, not deliver the weight of your body, or not support the weight of your body. Two distinct and unique and beautiful and necessary parts of the same spine. Sounds like humans to me, in my mind. Be right back after this short break. My name is Herbie and this has been Pal Go On.
We have a recommended book reading list. If you feel like you have a hard time understanding yourself at this stage in your life, check out No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert A. Glover. It's an aggressive title, but a very meaningful book when it comes to understanding the self, both men and women, masculinity and femininity. So you'll see it first in yourself, then throughout the world, so it brings peace through understanding. Do you suffer from a mental illness that you want to actually do something about? Or do you just want to be able to change your patterns and behaviors in life? Check out that book with the girl with holding her hand up. It's an amazing book. The Body's Map of Consciousness, Volume 1, Movement, by Lansing, Barrett, Gresham, and Julie J. Nichols. Do you have body or neck aches throughout the day or throughout the night? And gone to chiropractors and just been frustrated with not being able to get a permanent fix? Check out the purple book, The Structures of Movement and Breathing, by Conable, and Anatomy of the Voice by Theodore and Dimon for a more detailed look there, that book on the left, and take charge of getting your relief back. All these books are highly recommended and pretty short and just freaking phenomenal books. Beyond impressive, incredible, ridiculous, awesome, stupendous, prodigious.
I don't read that many books, so I don't read as many books as I should. Let's say that. And so if I recommend these books, you know they're good. Highly informative, short books that are concise and often most of these books are very good as just like references. Once you get information, hold on to like what was meaningful to you. They're pretty easy to like flip through again. They got nice pictures. and our bodies are physical, so pictures are way easier to describe sometimes when it comes like balance. Imagine how many words it takes to like describe what's happening. I mean, case in point, my mouth is always running like 1,000,000,000 miles per hour. Welcome back. I hope your break was good, as we are feeling so good from the inside out. I hope you're able to stretch your self-awareness like a muscle today, as we return to the Best Feeling Podcast, your only no-nonsense podcast on the Best Feeling Network. My name is Herbie. This is Pal Go On. Welcome back. This is a True Love Tuesday. It is November 8th, 2022. It is a True Love Tuesday. So, of course, we are discussing the relationship between the two sexes. And we've been discussing how the women, just to keep it simple, guys, you know what I mean, the feminine spirit. I'm not saying that men don't encapsulate this sometimes, for better or for worse. I'm just saying, just in general, as we talk about the world as it's split up, there's a masculine and feminine way to look at it. Masculine would be like that physical reality, this outside world, and the feminine is more about the inside world and how it is reacting to the outside world. The inside world and the outside world being so opposite, right? Where like the outside world, no two things can occupy the same space at all, right? Like this microphone cannot exist in the same exact spots. Even water, right, displaces itself, which is why you could fill an ocean. Otherwise, it'd just be like one really, really dense water molecule or something. But even then, you know, it's like you just can't even like physically, you can't really like fathom it. The outside world, everything takes up a unique spot in the world, in the 3D world. As the inside world, I mean, anything could exist anywhere, right? Like you have your thoughts all in the same space. All of your dreams, hopes, and dreams are all in the same spot. They're probably represented differently in like the electrons and stuff. So the inside world is more about how it's experienced phenomenally, like the phenomenon, the experience of it. And so we each are going through both, right? We need the outside world because we are living in the outside world, and yet we live first and foremost in our inside world and what we are perceiving and what our experience is, what our phenomenon is. And how might we improve our phenomenon? How might we improve our godlike experience and be more authentic to that experience, possibly taking the stress off of our muscles of trying to hold ourselves in one spot and allowing our weight to be delivered into the weight-bearing portion of the spine, which is the front, to allow the rest of our body to be concerned with what it's concerned with, just movement, not stability. You could even think of like the masculine spirit as being like the spirit that goes towards stability, whereas the feminine spirit is the spirit that goes towards movement. Are these two, does one of them make the other one less important? No, you need stability sometimes and you need movement sometimes. In fact, you need them in tandem. You need them working together most of the time. Like to move properly, you need to stabilize certain parts of your body so that you can move other parts, so that the other parts can kind of drag the other parts. We have this relationship with ourselves even. But in order for us to simply exist, we have bones and we have muscles. Bones meant to stay as they are so that they can deliver weight without much fuss in our body. There's no nerve endings on these bones, on our weight-bearing portion of the bones. And the muscles meant to move, change shape, contract, relax. You need the bony structures to maintain the structure of your body, to maintain the integrity of the body, so that the body can have something to be. And then you need the muscles to move the body to where it needs to go to explore what it needs to find the food that it needs, to go to sleep where it wants to be, to get the drink that it needs. You need both. Just the same way, male and female, you need both. And yet, although they are part of this body, if we think about the masculine being the sturdiness of the bone and the women being the malleable and flexible muscles, they're of the same body, yet completely independent in what they concern themselves with, yet they still also have the same interest. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? As above, so below, right? As we talk about how our universe is just consistent the entire way through. Our universe and ourselves as human beings, even our consciousness, everything is made up of the same building blocks, this inside world, this outside world, this conversation, this cooperation between two seemingly opposites. Yet these two opposites is what defines this entire medium, this entire body that is created from it. Now, men and females, men and women both having bones and muscles, you might think that the metaphor falls apart. Wait a minute. How can men be bones if men have muscle? How can women be muscle? They also have bones. Well, of course, we're made up of both of these. Just as the human race is made up of both men and women. Your bodies are made up of both muscle and bone, yet forming the same body with the same idea for well-being. They both want the best for each other. Just because we have both does not mean that this distinction of what we should do is any different. Oh, well, we both have bones and we both have muscles, so therefore men and women should both be concerned with the same thing. No, men and women, just because you have both bone and muscles, we should be spirited towards being as perfect as just being the bone or as just being the muscle. So yes, you have both muscle and the bone, which is good. That's where we start. And so for us to perfect this order and live the most awesome, carefree, godlike, peaceful life, well, we should represent the universe. We should represent what we are, what we literally are, so that the proper roles of the body can be enacted upon. The weight-bearing portion of the spine should concern itself with bearing the weight of the body, not trying to split itself or try to be both and be like, I want to be the weight-bearing portion and I want to house the nerves. Not gonna happen. At least not if you want a well-oiled and highly performing body that can go out and be as free as it wants to be. It's not gonna happen. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is best off doing its job as best as it can, as it is formed for it, and it will never change from that. The bones will never change from that, from their role. Same way that if you are a male, your function, despite what you do to it, that is what you are best suited towards doing, is being a male. Same way that your front of your spine is best suited for delivering the weight of the body, and should it try to split its roles, maybe even if it's because it cares about the back of the spine, if it tries to split its roles, it's actually doing worse for both roles now, because it's just simply not doing its job as best as it can. It's trying to manage someone else's job. The job should get done by the one most apt to do it. And so the back of the spine cannot go and be like, I want to be the front of the spine and weight and support the weight of the body. Not gonna happen. You will break, and then now nothing is there to shield the nerves. So just because we have, because we have muscles and bones, that means that, men and women, we're all gonna do the same thing then, because we have both bones and muscles. Or we could look at the bones and muscles as representing what we are and our design and our pattern and our roles in the world, as we see with the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. We can choose to try to idealize both of those roles now that we've identified them. Start off in the middle as this mush and race towards the extremes so that we can hold this entire body up as well as possible, each doing our roles as well as possible. And so we run to the extremes. If, as a woman, you're like, I'm gonna run to the extreme of being what that means. I'm gonna run to the extreme of being the muscles. As the men, I'm gonna run to the extremes of being the bone. In concept, not physicality. I'm not gonna literally try to be a bone. I'm not literally gonna just try to melt and be a muscle, but as the muscle, I will be, if I'm the If I'm the woman and the feminine spirit, I will run towards the extreme of being the muscle, which is the actual movement of the body that causes the body to go and actually go towards what it wants, go towards what it's dreaming about, go towards the food that it desires, go towards anything. Whereas the man will go towards the bones and attempt to be an idealized version of that component of life, which is the sturdy part, which is the rock-like part. It's the foundation, not concerned with the pulling of the body, but rather the resting of the body so that it can ease the weight of everything around it by simply being what it's supposed to be. It's holding that ground, boom, sturdy, boom, it creates freedom for the rest of the body to move as freely and effortlessly as possible, which means with as much authenticity, which means with as much happiness and peace. Thank you for joining us for this November 8th, 2022 True Love Tuesday, where we talked about the inside and outside world. And of course, on Padawan, as we were discussing the relationship between us and all things, today on True Love Tuesday, of course, we were talking about the relationship between us and the sexes, the two sexes. And so I really enjoy talking about this. I always do. One of my favorite topics. And talking about how the masculine energy, though it exists in all of us, we encapsulate the entire universe from top to bottom, right? The universe is blah, 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 blah. We got this outside world, we got this inside world, we got the bones, we got the muscles, we got the masculine, the feminine. Within each man and women, we have masculine and feminine, but we also embody that on a different, what's the word I'm looking for? Scope. We embody that on a different scope physically now too. Or we are men and female, though we have the masculine, feminine energy. Thank you for joining us today. All you inside world watchers, or inside world naturalers like women, all you outside world naturalers like men, hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you tomorrow on Warfare Wednesday. My name is Herbie. This has been the Best Feeling Podcast, your only no nonsense network. Because we feel so good from the inside out. This has been Padawan.